Hello and welcome to Vancouver Carpenter. So we have all seen the gap around the pot lights, generally from overcutting it. So it's a relatively simple fix that involves a few steps. So the first thing, of course, let's get this thing out of here and take a better look at it. I've taken the light down and I've stuffed this part up in here, just bent the wires until it stays. We can clearly see that this is overcut right here and we need to fill this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to knock down all of these hard nubs around the edge. And what these are is it's from after you paint it, it's the paper, the sort of shreddy paper around the hole. And the paint stiffens it up and makes it drop down. So in order to do a nice flat fix on this, I'm going to take some sandpaper and I got a block of plywood. So that's a lot flatter and nicer now. Now what I've got is a stiff mix of Quickset. So this is the side where it needs the work. I know it's hard to tell from your guys' angle, but it's right here. And I'm going to fill this spot in until it's nice and full. You don't have to use Quickset for this, but it's a better product because it's not going to shrink. And I'll be able to do the rest of the patch in short order without having to wait for it to dry overnight. Scoop that out. Do one more pass to flatten it out. Now I need to wait for this to set up. Now that this has had a chance to set up, I'm going to scrape off anything that's not flush with the ceiling. And I'm going to put a piece of tape. So paper tape with drywall mud on it. You see, I've just been running around doing a bunch of these, so I've got them all just sitting on my hawk ready to go. And I'm going to go a little bit over my intended patch, like so. We're going to cut it out after. So now I'm going to let this dry overnight and we'll come back to it and give it a coat or two tomorrow. This has had a chance to fully dry overnight. So this mud is now firm. So what I'm going to do is cutting upwards. So I'm only cutting on the up stroke here. I'm just going to cut this out. The reason I only cut on the upstroke is if I cut on the downstroke, I'll pull this stuff out. You want to make sure you have a pretty sharp knife here when you're doing this. But yeah, I'll rip the tape off if I cut on the downstroke. So this knife is actually borderline too dull. But either way, there we've carved out the circle nicely now. And now it's time to coat it. And this part's super important, you guys. We're not just gonna go like, there, hide the tape, done. No, you gotta coat all the way around this because the pot light won't sit flat if you don't go all the way around. So I'm gonna go like a full knife width all the way around. Now this is a 6-inch knife. And bigger won't hurt either. You can always go even wider. The wider you go, the less noticeable it is, especially if it's like right in the middle of a living room or something. I'm now going to feather my edge. Satisfying, ain't it? A little drywall ASMR. So I feathered my edge and now I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the inside. That's looking pretty darn good. You know what? I'm going to leave it at that because any of the little deficiencies I'm going to sand out before my next coat. This has had a chance to dry and now I'm going to use a nice firm sanding pad. And this is going to work a lot better than a sanding sponge because it's broad and flat and will really plane the surface down. So now I'm also going to do the patented hold my breath, sand, and run away method. Run away! Now that the dust is cleared, I can breathe and put another coat on this. So it's looking pretty flat around the edges from the sanding and from applying an even coat. So now it's time to just put one more coat on just to fill all the inconsistencies. And this is basically the exact same video as the other one I put out. And I guess the reason for that is, while they're two different problems, they're both the same solution. Sometimes I do a little slap like that, and the reason I do that, what it seems to do is it stops the mud from spilling over the edges of the knife. It just kind of slaps it up a bit, and it doesn't drip off the edges as often. Now, I know a lot of people say what I should be doing is wipe the tip of my knives off, but like, dude, that's 2 extra steps for each loading pass of mud. That's crazy talk. When I can just slap it. Feather my edge. And now I'm just pulling off what I put on till all the bubbles are filled. And it's looking nice and flat. Like it basically almost looks finished. Well, it will in a moment. One more. There we go. Nice and flat and smooth. It's just gonna need a quick little scuff so the paint will stick. This has had a chance to dry. I need to give it just one more sanding. I'm now gonna use a lighter foam-backed grit on my sanding pole, and then I'll finish it off with the sponge. Before I put the light back in, I'm going to carve all this stuff out to make sure it's flush with the can. There we go. Let's take a close look at that. As we can see, it's now sitting very flat. That shadow you can see is just a shadow from the direction of the lights that I have. The work lights. But it's sitting really flat, really flush, and there's no more gap. So we're looking good. That's how I like to fix an overcut pot light, you guys. And you might be thinking, well, why can't I just fill it and not use the tape? Well, the reason is when you start pushing that light back up or pulling it back down, the box is going to be able to move. So when I say that, I mean the can, like the light, you know, the metal-y cylinder thing, the housing. Come on, it's got a bunch of names. Anyways, as that moves independently from the drywall, the mud is going to be able to crack and fall out. And so the tape is there to hold it all together as one unit, right? Like the drywall's got the brown paper on the back side, and then you've added that new piece of tape on the front. So it's now like a contained unit, like a piece of drywall again, instead of this chunk that can fall out if it moves independently. So that's why I add the tape. Anyways, I hope that helps you solve how to solve the overcut pot light issue. Those were obnoxiously small pot light trims. Anyways, thanks for watching, you guys. I hope you got something useful out of this video. Till the next one.